We all know this game by now. If you really haven't heard about the Sonic game collaborating with Hatsune Miku, SpongeBob, The Last Avatar, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Minecraft, and Persona in the same game along with more collaborations, then you're living under a rock. I genuinely don't know how you haven't heard about this game with Sega advertising it literally all year. So, we all know what you're here for. You're here for my personal tier list of all of the tracks in Crossworlds and Sonic Racing Crossworlds. And I will say, after playing both the closed and open network tests, this next month is seriously going to depress me with not being able to play this amazing game. With the other content outside the network tests that they revealed, I actually cannot wait for them to release the full game, and I've been waiting for this since February. And when they announced that the open network test on top of the Pac-Man collaboration announcement, that's when I knew this game was going to come to a lot of people's attention, since it was also a free for everyone network test. While I do love a lot of things about this game, there are a couple of disadvantages about Crossworlds in general, but I'm not getting into my full retrospective of this game considering they're only here for the network tests and we haven't had the full release of the game yet. This video is for the track tier list so far anyways. So, not wasting any more of your time though, with this annoyingly long introduction, I'm going to get right into the tier list. Today, we'll be ranking all of the tracks in Crossworlds, and here's how I'll be ranking them. Does it separate itself? Is the theming unique, memorable, fun to play and come back to, interesting features, gimmicks, shortcuts, visuals, etc. Gameplay. Is it fun to play? Good shortcuts, gimmicks, complicated, simplistic, fun to drive around, and more. And then everything else, like the soundtrack, the ambience, and just a bunch of other random stuff that makes the track kind of all click together. So, just to go and recap real quick though, here are all the tracks in Crossworlds I'll be ranking today. The Crossworlds are Sky Road, Magma Planet, Dragon Road, Kraken Bay, Holoska, Dinosaur Jungle, and Roulette Road. Then the tracks are as follows: Mystic Jungle, Sand Road, Rainbow Garden, East Stadium, Water Palace, Colorful Mall, Wonder Museum, Meadow Harbor, and Apatos. However, there is another track, Ocean View. Ocean View was included during the closed network test, and while the track wasn't in the open network test, even though the closed network test had some very janky gameplay elements, I do still want to include Ocean View in my tier list. So, I'm sorry for a long introduction, let's get to ranking the Crossworlds. So let's start off with the worst Crossworld in this game right now, and honestly this may or may not shock you. Number 7, Magma Planet. Honestly, the ideas for this Crossworld weren't even that bad, and if we're going to talk about uniqueness, this is one of the most unique Crossworlds or tracks in the tests. So why is it at the very bottom of the Crossworlds? It's purely because of the execution of this track. I hate to break it to you guys, but Magma Planet is just not that much fun to play when you're in a race. I would rather pick a random track, and I think this is one of the only Crossworlds I feel this way about. My main problem with this track is nothing about the theming or the other elements of it, it's because of the gameplay. While this track has a lot of split pads and some obstacles, there's not enough for me to remember this Crossworld fondly in general. It's kind of boring and extremely linear. Compared to the other Crossworlds, this is my least favorite purely because the track is just unfortunately not that great compared to the others due to how basic it is, despite the awesome theming. If they had executed this slightly differently, I think it would have been way more up my list, but the gameplay is very underwhelming, and I understand that there's a lot of vertical elements with the transformation mechanic and everything, but I really just cannot defend this track when it's just that boring to play. Number 6, Kraken Bay. With Magma Planet being out of the way, these Crossworlds I think are actually pretty good from here on out, with these next 3 Crossworlds being Crossworlds I like in general. Kraken Bay ended up being in 6th place, which is not where I had it originally, but the more and more that I played Kraken Bay in comparison to the 5th place Crossworld, I moved this Crossworld down, and there's a very similar issue on this Crossworld as well. The gameplay is extremely linear, a little bit more linear than Magma Planet. However, with that being said, it's way better than Magma Planet. I think the theming is also a slight bit better in my personal opinion, but this track just has a lot more obstacles and it's extremely chaotic, which is kind of the charm of this track since you have the ghosts and the Kraken tentacles everywhere. Then you see a bunch of shipwreck related elements and you see it all going to ruin while you're trying to race through it all. It's just really fun to play in general, and it's a whole entire adrenaline rush, and it's why I like this Crossworld quite a bit. While it did get surpassed and while it is in 6th place, it's still not a bad Crossworld, but it's still great theming overall anyways. Number 5, Sky Road. Yep, this beat out Kraken Bay for me. As I was coming up with the rankings and recording the footage for this video, I was playing through Kraken Bay a lot, and I began to realize what Sky Road had over Kraken Bay, and it was the fact that it was much more simple and less chaotic. There's really nothing wrong with Sky Road, I mean, you know. Sky Road is actually one of the most beautiful tracks in this game, and you're not going to tell me otherwise. The gameplay is great with lots of shortcuts and alternate routes, still uses transformation mechanics, and even though it's basic, it does still have hard turns and great little Easter eggs and stuff. Now, here's the catch. Market Street and Sky Road, from my memory, are usually paired together a lot in Sonic racing games, especially Team Sonic Racing. And now that Sky Road is a Crossworld, what in the world are they going to do with Market Street? It just feels like there's something missing for me to keep continuously playing Sky Road overall. It might be due to that missing representation of Market Street. And even though it was shown at the end of the Crossworld as you go down into the Crossworld portal, I'd still have the same issues with it from the closed network test because it's just a little bit too generic for me to like a lot. However, with all of that being said, it still is a really fun Crossworld to play, and I think it's a slight bit underrated. I know I gave it a low rating, but it's okay. Number 4, Roulette Road. I am shocked with myself I have to place this Crossworld in the direct middle spot, but the other 3 Crossworlds are just so much better compared to Roulette Road, and this one has a few more faults than normal, but still more fun to play than the previous 3. Let me explain all this. First off, the theming is literally just Casino Park again, used in every single Sonic Racing game so far. I mean, you really can't go wrong with it anyways though. This is literally Sonic Racing's Rainbow Road or Bowser's Castle, and I have no complaints about that. The other details in this track are pretty good, and I think this might have my favorite soundtrack in this game as well. Excuse me. Now, here's where the track falls a bit flat. The gameplay and visuals. When comparing this version of Roulette Road to Team Sonic Racing and Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed especially, this version of Roulette Road is way too cramped, and the visuals aren't standing out as much like normal. I think Team Sonic Racing, while very faulty, handled Roulette Road the best in the entirety of the Sonic Racing series, and I still stand to that. This version of Roulette Road is just too cramped and the visuals don't stand out like they should for the casino theming. And I wish it hit as hard as the soundtrack does, because combining all the Roulette Road related soundtracks together into one theme is genius and sounds so good, but unfortunately the track itself just fell short. So, from here on out, these Crossworlds are the Crossworlds that I think are really good overall and I have zero complaints with. These are my go-to Crossworlds and I will gladly replay all of them. So let's head into the top 3. Number 3, Holoska. This Crossworld grew on me a lot after I played it more. Originally, I thought this Crossworld was just mid, but the more and more I played it, even though it's a little bit basic, it has a lot packed into it for a Crossworld. And the gameplay of it is a lot of fun. I love this Crossworld a lot. Nintendo made me very tired of the whole winter theme on tracks in these types of racing games, but Holoska hits different, especially since it's just a Crossworld. My thing about Holoska is the fact that it doesn't feel like the stereotypical wintry frozen Christmassy track, especially the setting that it's placed in and how the soundtrack was carried out. And just overall, it has a really good soundtrack as well, beautiful visuals, and really fun gameplay. And even if it doesn't have many shortcuts, you can boat or fly, have very hard on land turns, see the whales jumping around you, and go into the frozen temple environment kind of at the very end of the track, along with all the icicles around you. It just shows how I don't know the source material of the track overall, but either way, it's a really good and fun to play Crossworld. I like everything about this one, but the other 2 Crossworlds are just simply better than this one. Number 2, Dragon Road. Putting the puzzle pieces together, you now know that my favorite Crossworld is Dinosaur Jungle. And yes, it's completely because of childhood, but let me explain this one for getting second place first. Dragon Road is a great Crossworld and really fun to play. I love the layout of it, the water section, and the theming of the track. The only reason why this track is below Dinosaur Jungle, being nitpicky, but it's because the ending could have been so much more to bring us back to the track rather than just a giant leap in the air. And it kind of just feels like they wanted to end the Crossworld there with just doing a giant 360 turn almost, and it kind of just feels a slight bit rushed. So overall, that's why it's under Dinosaur Jungle, but aside from that stuff, the track is a lot of fun and I love the theming of this track. Comparing this to Dragon Driftway from Mario Kart 8, this is significantly better. And Sonic Racing handles this theme so much better just in general, and I'll never complain if I end up playing Dragon Road. But now we have for our first place Crossworld, which is Dinosaur Jungle. I've noticed that a lot of people don't actually like this Crossworld, which I'm very surprised about, so why is this at the top of my list? First of all, Sonic and the Secret Rings was my childhood game on the Wii, so the fact that Zone especially even came back as a track in Sonic Racing Crossworlds is awesome to me. Hearing Sonic's special interactions this game mentioning Shara as well just gives this track even more personality to the theme and reference. That game had such a great story if only the gameplay didn't flop. Anyways, heading on to the actual track itself, it is so much fun to play. You drop down a waterfall, go through a pathway full of dinosaurs, go into a really nice looking cave, then come out, drive on the green leaves that are spread all over the place, and then you drive on the dinosaur itself. Sega, whose idea was this? It is so good. You can even see the dinosaur on the minimap, and yes, you can see the Kraken from Kraken Bay as well. But you can't actually drive on the Kraken, so it doesn't count. The transformation mechanics work perfectly to show the actual stage here, the theming is excellent, and the gameplay is just so much fun with so much going on, so much to show. They absolutely nailed how this track should be. My only small critique for this track is that it doesn't feel like a traditional jungle like Mystic Jungle does, but with the prehistoric theme, this works well anyways. So, we're now done with the Crossworlds. We now gotta rank all 10 of the actual tracks that I've played so far, and yes, again, we are including Ocean View. So, let's get right into it. The tracks. In 10th place, we have Wonder Museum. I have never had more hate for a singular track before. I think I actually hate this track more than a lot of the tracks in Mario Kart, and this says something significant about this track.
This track is hot garbage. You can go back to the scrap heap where it belongs. It is a clinker. It is generic, boring, uninteresting. D-ranked me from A tier to A- tier. Gameplay sucks. Soundtrack is generic. Visuals are uninspiring. Museums are boring, and this track sucks.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Sorry for the crash out. I'm not trying to scream into your headset or whatever. But seriously, this track is extremely bad. For this to be one of the tracks that I've played the most in both network tests, I genuinely don't understand where your heads are at. Tell me how a museum that has the most boring monotone thing is a good track. Please, explain. This track is very boring on the first lap, and sure, on the third lap it's a little bit more fun, but it's still hot garbage. They could have themed these different exhibits so much better and made it more immersive, and the track did not need to be this high on the gameplay. I feel like a sponge eye is being continuously squeezed out on this track, and this track is just not fun to play at all. This track also appears way too commonly for me on the random track selection for the Crossworlds instead of getting a Crossworld. And I'll reassure you right now, I would much rather get Magma Planet than this piece of garbage. I hope more hate comes out for you, Wonder Museum, because you are a horrible track that doesn't deserve to exist. You legitimately feel like a rage room to me, and if I could, I would rob you because of how bad you are. And to list some other things that suck about this track in general, the dinosaur area doesn't feel special literally at all. The plane area has the dumbest out of bounds spot next to a ramp that if you don't make it on that ramp, it sends you back quite a ways. A statue is in the middle of the road and you can't get past it with it sometimes lifting itself out. The layout is not original compared to something like Colorful Mall. The shortcuts are mostly locked until lap 3. The cars are extremely annoying, and there's a lot more, but I won't waste any more of your time with this. In 9th place, we have Water Palace. Honestly, this track deserves better. Listen, I'm not a Sonic Riders player, so the nostalgia on this track doesn't hit the same. But this is the most forgettable track in the whole entire game for me. Multiple times when I was trying to recall all of the tracks or figure out all of the tracks that needed to go in this ranking, I forgot Water Palace every single time. The gameplay isn't really that bad, but it does kind of just feel like a tutorial track for the water gimmicks. The other issue as well is that even though it does feel different compared to Ocean View, any tracks with the ocean type of theming is going to lose to Ocean View since that's also in the game. Now, actually talking about Water Palace, I do like the whole palace theme with the aquarium, and I think the theming of the track isn't bad in the first place, but it is extremely simple and not my favorite. I think this track could have had a slightly better remake. I mean, we got a waterfall in Dinosaur Jungle, and this track didn't even get waves in the water, so you could probably see where I'm coming from here. Also, the last thing I would like to mention is that this track is the only track that has a problem with this, but there is no build-up at the end of the track aside from a shortcuts at the end of the track itself. All of the other tracks have unique visuals and details at the end of the track to build up towards the actual ending of the track, but Water Palace doesn't have that and it just exists. Some build-up definitely would have been nice, and if it had that, it probably would have at least placed a little bit higher for being more memorable. The aquarium is the most memorable part of this track, and I wish I did more with that gimmick considering Sonic Colors and Sonic Lost World handled the whole aquarium thing really well in the first place. And I wish I could have also said the same for Crossworlds as Water Palace. In 8th place, we have East Stadium. I didn't originally plan on placing this track this low. However, I have to. It's just the starter tutorial track in the game at the end of the day, and I mean originally I actually liked this track a lot, and I enjoyed playing it a lot, but over time the other tracks just ended up surpassing it. There's really nothing wrong with East Stadium though. I like the theming of it having some callbacks to the original Sonic era games with the huge holograms and stuff. The Warp Ring shortcut on the third lap is really cool and wish it did that on more tracks, and this track just has good gameplay overall. But it just doesn't stand out compared to all the other tracks in the game, and with how little I have to say compared to all the other main tracks in the script, I think you guys can kind of see my point on this one. Number 7, Apatos. The remix on the soundtrack is great, but this track overall is not very great. The gameplay is fun, but nothing really stands out to me much. Now, it is based off of yet another original Sonic game zone, but the actual gameplay itself is way too cramped. I mean, I get that's the point, but it doesn't work when it's that cramped. It was my original problem with the overall game, and it's not the most fun theming in the first place. I mean, you're just on the coastline with a little city and mountains all over the place, and it's very cool and all, especially for referencing a previous Sonic zone, but it's not very inspiring. Also, this is probably the most overrated track in the game, considering there's way better tracks compared to Apato's. But the fact that it gets picked so much in the track selector and the random Crossworld feature, it's just not the most fun track ever when you also play it almost every single race. Aside from Wonder Museum, the track has also been picked way too much for me, as I literally just said. I don't know why I said that twice inside the script. In terms of the actual gameplay, I mean, it's not bad. Why am I repeating myself so much? Additionally, I do like the transformation mechanic use. However, the main problem I have with the gameplay is that this is probably also the most linear
interruption. What happened to this drop?
With just the fact that there's not a lot of extra details or gameplay features making you continuously look out or look at the track. And it can get slightly boring at times playing the track, especially with how minimal extra details there are. At least with all the other zones, like, yeah, you're able to tell it's the zone itself, but they also add all the extra little details and stuff. Apato's is just a little bit bland.
6th place.
Rainbow Garden. This one grew on me a lot. At the beginning of the network test, I thought this was going to be the bottom of my list, but as I played it more and more, it grew on me even more. And even if it didn't make the top 5, we're at the point where I like playing these tracks now, and they're pretty fun to play. Rainbow Garden looks pretty, especially during the cave part with all of its extra details. The rainbow fields look very pretty, the overall track and the whole canyon is a nice touch, and the gameplay, even though it's basic and very simplistic, is pretty fun as well. Additionally, all the textures that they use for this track all look very nice, especially with how much the road itself changes. They put a lot of focus into the visuals and theming here, and it all works very well. I like this track quite a bit. And really, I don't have too many complaints for this track at all. My only problem is that the gameplay of it doesn't go up to par with the rest of the tracks in this game from this track on, but it is still pretty fun to come back to nevertheless. Number 5, Metal Harbor. Sonic Adventure 2. Never can go wrong with that masterpiece. And this zone is pretty cool to return from that game into Crossworlds. The name exactly describes the track itself, and the track itself is pretty cool. It kind of feels like it was inspired off of the gameplay of Carrier Zone from Transformed a little bit, but either way, this track is cool and everything, but there are some disadvantages. First of all, I wonder how they chose that track layout. That's kind of interesting. I wonder if they had to rotate it out or anything. Nah, you know what, it's okay, it's just a missile shape. Anyways, the gameplay is fun, I guess. The layout is pretty simple, but there are a lot of ramps and the gun machines to keep you interested in the track with all the planes flying around above you. There is one major part of the track that sucks for me though, and it's near the beginning. I absolutely hate the first turn with the plane ramp placement. I don't even want to go onto that plane ramp, I want to go onto the land. And every single time I fall into the trap because the plane ramp is closer when you drift over there. It's really annoying, but it's definitely intentional anyways, but that's just a complaint for me anyway. But in terms of everything else about the track, it's pretty standard. There's not really much else I could say about it, because that's just kind of the track itself. Metal Harbor is Metal Harbor at the end of the day. And I truly think this is the middle track in the game, considering it serves its purpose and has some nice theming, but it doesn't stand out compared to the rest of the tracks. Number 4, Ocean View. This one got a last minute change down to 4th. And that's because as I was writing this script, I played the 3rd place track and I bumped this track down. This track was originally 2nd place, but after thinking about it a little bit, I don't have that much of an accurate representation of this track with reworks, and I have to judge it off of the closed network test gameplay. Do I think this track will drastically improve? Definitely. Was it fun to play on the closed network test? I mean, it was fun for the experience, but in terms of the actual gameplay, not really. It had all the problems that the closed network test had itself, so it's kind of hard to rank this track right now, but for what the track had going itself, here's what I will say. The versions of Ocean View and Team Sonic Racing and Transformed are better than this version, but this version is still pretty good. I might like this version more than Team Sonic Racing, but I don't really know. Anyways, this track is still pretty cool either way. The visuals are pretty nice, and the soundtrack was really good on this version of Ocean View. My main problem is that this track couldn't have had tighter gameplay than what it did, and that was a major problem with closed network tests in general. And with me not knowing if they fixed that or not, I can't give this track the most accurate ranking ever, so this is where it's being placed for now. This is subject to change. It's time to get into the top 3 tracks. Number 3. Oh boy, buckle up for this one.
You just got colorful mold. Show us all the friends to colorful mold.
Sorry, someone had to do it. Anyways, let's first get this one out of the way about the soundtrack. The soundtrack actually just feels like the Los Angeles Labs Mario Kart 8 shitpost edition of Sonic Racing Crossworlds being the Colorful Mall soundtrack. Tell me I'm wrong, and yet it still sounds really good. Even though it's more of a chilled track, it is still a fun track overall to play, so no complaints about Colorful Mall at all. Heading on to the actual track gameplay itself, I'll be comparing this track a lot to Coconut Mall since that's the other mall track we have to reference to since this is the first mall track in the Sonic Racing series, and here's what I'll say. Colorful Mall is infinitely better than Coconut Mall. Yep, I said it. This track is just so much better than what Coconut Mall is, and listen, I love Coconut Mall, but Colorful Mall actually feels more like a mall. Both tracks have their ups and downs, but the main advantage of Colorful Mall is the scenery and the execution of it. I love the fact that we bounce between different stories on the track and that the cinema area opens up on the final lap. And that's a lot of different paths to change on this. What did I just say? And that there's a lot of different paths to take on this track because it's all extremely fun to play and it actually feels like you're inside of an actual mall other than just that linear gameplay that Coconut Mall has with being limited into one single area. Meanwhile, Colorful Mall immerses you a lot more in your face. The track shines in both the gameplay and the visuals and the extra details, and it doesn't stand out compared to the final three.
I didn't edit this to the placement. Oopsies.
My final thing I want to mention about the positives about this track is that everything is themed entirely around the wisps in the mall, and I think that's just amazing theming. Everything is just themed around wisps, has the wisp colors, and it all just looks very pretty and pleasing to be in. I just love this track in general. The only reason why it's not on the top 2 is because the themes of the other 2 tracks are just so much better, and I'd like to see themes a lot more being off the previous Sonic stages as well. So, let's move on to the top 2, shall we? Number 2, Mystic Jungle. This track was originally my most favorite track in the network test for the longest time, but as I began to play it over and over again more and more, which it was one of the more popular picks anyways, I began to find more and more faults with this track that the other first place track doesn't have. Now, Sonic Forces, the worst game in the entirety of the mainline Sonic series, having some of the best reputation in Crossworlds with how good this stage was, is a total plot twist. This track is actually themed extremely well, has a really good soundtrack, and plays very well. However, I have 2 main problems with this track overall. First of all, the visuals. One major part of Mystic Jungle itself is how you kind of have the Casino Park theme intermixed with this jungle theme overall. And that's not the most prevalent thing in this track, but then mainly just being the water slide, the best part of Sonic Forces. While it's not the most world-ending thing, I think the Casino Park theme could have stuck out a little more rather than just the beginning and end of the track. With that being said though, they did stay very native to the source material in terms of the visuals, and in terms of the gameplay itself, the water slide unfortunately was a very giant issue. You actually have to have some crazy drifting or handling in order to control yourself on that water slide, because even with good stats, I sometimes still fall off the water slide. It is really cool how they added that into Mystic Jungle anyways, but it also gets offset by the fact it doesn't play the best either. There are a lot of positives about this track though, especially for it being Sonic Forces inspired. I absolutely love the fact that they added the water slide in general anyways, and the snake reference towards the end of the track to the giant boss battle that ends up happening right after is all extremely cool. All of the extra details around the track just looks really cool in general, and this being one of the harder tracks to play is pretty cool as well. I just said the word cool a lot in one sentence, but you get my point. This track is a lot of fun overall, and I never really complain when I get this track selected because I love this track. The soundtrack just sounds so good, and everything about this track just pieces all together. However, with all this being said, there is one track that tops everything. Number 1, Sand Road. I wish I had more to say about this track, but it's so good that I can't talk about it that much, you know? Let me go through everything. This track is just straight up amazing. Almost everything about it. Literally the only small nitpick that I have about this track is the fact that the soundtrack fell a little short from my expectations, with Team Sonic Racing sounding a lot better. But aside from that, this track is extremely fun to play. This track definitely got a huge blow up compared to Team Sonic Racing, and the fact that a whole entire boating section gets added on the 3rd lap is insane. This track aesthetically also looks beautiful with the oasis in the middle. You go through the temple now, similar to Boo Temple or whatever it was called from TSR. You have the hilly part of the stage with the mechanical sandworms and more. And you can tell way more now that this was truly inspired off the Sandalphus Zone from Sonic 3. The track just got a huge glow up compared to Team Sonic Racing in general, and everything about the track is just a lot better. I love how there's different sections of the track. I like the soundtrack even though TSR's was better. I love the visuals. I love the theme and attention to detail, and I could keep going, but this yappening is already getting long enough. So, to end all this off, Sand Road is truly the best track, and I'm going to be standing by this until the full game release. It was really hard to decide between Sand Road, Colorful Mall, Mystic Jungle, and Ocean View, but that's the order I came up with, and I'm super happy with it now. And one last thing to add on Sand Road is that it is also considered as one of the harder tracks in the game, and honestly, I like that a lot. Sand Road being a little bit more of a difficult track, but then also still having all these unique gameplay elements, still keeping its own identity and being extremely fun. It is just so much fun. So, yeah. Overall, that's what I rank all of the Crossworlds and tracks inside of Sonic Racing Crossworlds. Some of you guys may disagree with me, especially on a couple of the tracks like Apatos. But listen, this is my personal ranking. You can go and attack me if you want for my personal rankings, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to care because it's all my opinion, and that's something that people should realize a little bit more these days. But yeah, I hope you guys all enjoyed today's video. I'm trying to keep this under 30 minutes, so you're welcome. But anyways, I will see you guys next time. Peace out.